Of course, they concluded that the pallet itself, something in it started the fire, most likely.
Well, that's what they believed.
Right. But
yeah.
so that was my question: is like if something of lower volatility happened to catch fire, deeper in the hold,
the fire jumped.
Yeah, and that it was just that there was a lot of volatile stuff on that pallet, for instance.
We don't know. The pallet itself was. It was plastic wrapped in plastic. It was computer stuff.
Oh.
And it was wrapped in, what the heck was it? Polystyrene packing. So it's plastic wrapped around hunks of plastic.
Yeah.
So plastic burns hot, but...
Yeah, not that. But that was Pallet PR that had that cargo?
Yep, that was PR.
Okay.
Yeah, it was computers was what it was.
Okay.
Which are all plastic.
Yeah.
There's very little metal in a computer.
It seems unlikely that...
Well, I mean, it depends. Possible. It could have, but it's hard to say.
Yeah.
So this is 1987, so there's a whole mess of really cool vintage computers scattered about the ocean floor.
Yeah.
That are like partially burned and melted, probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, I would go for doubloons. Joe's going for melted computer parts.
Yeah. I'm just going to go for a galleon, of whatever. I don't care.
I want a galleon, gold.
Yeah. But most everything that was in the cargo hold area was polystyrene wrapped.
Just plastic, yeah.
Except for there was a few things that were cardboard boxes, and there was a few heavy items that were like auto parts things that were in wooden boxes.
Okay, crates.
Crates, yeah. They were crates with hay packing, stuff like that. So this seems to be what would have been the most flammable to burn hot and hard.
So it's weird that it was a pallet full of computers and plastic.
It's a little bit, makes you kind of wonder what's going on.
Things that make you go,
Yeah, maybe it was not really that at all.
Maybe not. There are some theories that say that, but actually, before we get into theories, I do want to point out something that I have seen that I don't really like.
Yeah.
And this
I agree with you.
Peeves me off.
I agree. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Okay, so here's what I'm talking about. There are several sites that say there's things that say that the crew did not follow their fire procedure, which would be the smoke evacuation checklist. That checklist would say that in the event of a fire, you descend, you open the doors to depressurize the plane to suck all the smoke out. By the way, you have to do that after the fire's out. You can't do it while the fire's still going.
Obviously, yeah.
Bad idea. But these places say that they didn't do it, but they have no way of knowing that because the flight had already said it was descending, and then minutes after that, we lost contact.
Away, yeah.
I'm sure they were probably highly motivated to go back there and put that fire out. I'm guessing.
I'm pretty sure that this they didn't follow the checklist thing comes from a TV show.
Yeah.
There's a TV show called Mayday, or depending on which country you're in, it's under a number of different names. There's Air Crash Investigations, Air Emergency, Air Disaster. Really great names. Yeah, which these shows have evidently been on for a while. They go for seasons.
This sounds like the show that they're showing on the airplane in Airplane. Right?
It probably
I think it
was.
probably is.
Are you talking about the in-flight movie?
Yeah,
when it's just the
airplane's crashing. Yeah.
That was so awesome.
We probably shouldn't be laughing
No,
about this,
but it's okay. These goofballs, though, they say this and they put a negative spin on it, and it's not appropriate in my mind because they have no way to know that. From what we know, they were following what they should have been doing.
I would imagine they would. Like I said, they were motivated.
Well, and there's some specifics that prove that they were probably doing it because at 29 minutes and 5 seconds on the voice recorder, the captains heard asking for the main deck cargo fire checklist. So he's asking for it. This is, again, minutes before the transmission's lost. So it seems like they were doing what they were supposed to.
Yeah.
The other thing that I want folks to understand is what a terrible idea it turns out the combi was and how terribly it performed in the event of a fire.
Well, I mean, the combi was a great idea. It just didn't have a good fire suppression system in the cargo hold.
And there was some bad math, I would say. Some bad math was done on the way things worked. And let me run this through so people know where I'm going with my kind of my little
please.
I'm standing on a soapbox, I know. The size of the cargo hold in that area is 9,600 cubic feet. I don't know what that converts to in meters. I didn't do the math on that one. Sorry, folks. But it's that area was thought, that big of an area was thought that it would help keep byproducts of a fire, aka smoke, from getting into the passenger cabin based on the fact that there was a pressure difference between the two.
Right. One was, yeah.
The passenger cabin was at a higher pressure than the cargo hold. The seal of the little movable wall that they had wasn't an airtight fit. It had a 25 centimeter thick seal, but it wasn't completely airtight. But air would flow from high pressure cabin to lower pressure cargo area. So it makes sense to think, well, great, that'll keep all the smoke back there. But it turns out when there's a raging hot fire,
pressure changes.
the pressure changes.
Weird.
The air heats up, and next thing
and
you know.
suddenly the flow reverses, and it all rolls into the passenger compartment.
Yeah.
So that was a problem.
This actually is the thing about it is they might actually have been overcome by smoke inhalation, and if they had just deployed their oxygen masks, and I don't know if these guys actually have like portable oxygen units to where they can go fight the fire while they're wearing a gas mask.
The crew?
Yeah,
I believe they were supposed. I believe there is that.
Yeah, so that's I think that if they had just deployed their oxygen for the passengers themselves, that it might have turned out a little differently. I couldn't say.
That's a hard one. Having gone through firefighter training on my time on a cruise ship, it's startlingly hard to navigate an area when it's filled with smoke.
I bet.
Even when you have your little mask on and you're breathing real oxygen. I mean, they train you to like follow the wall, but in this huge cargo hold that you're not, it's just filled with smoke. You don't know where it's coming from, and you probably have your tiny little fire extinguisher. Like, there's no all bets are off. There's no way you're going to find that fire probably, or find the right thing, or maybe you don't have the right extinguisher, or...
Well, and fire suppression was also one of the big problems with the combis.
Yeah.
Because, okay, let's talk about this, is that in an airplane, if the cargo hold where your bags go on a passenger airline catches on fire, the guys in the cockpit get a warning light, and they push a button, and Freon gas is blasted in there, and it extinguishes the whole thing. But like we talked about, you can't do that in an area that potentially would have human beings.
You can't do that.
So
it kills that. Just in case anybody was wondering, it will kill you.
Yeah, don't go
immediately.
Yeah, don't be huffing the Freon.
Don't do
that.
it.
Yeah.
No, it's crazy. It's.
Yeah. So instead, what the process was is, then what we'll do is as Devin was talking, is that we'll send one of our crew members with their mask and a fire extinguisher into that area that is
presumes they
smoke-filled.
have a mask. I don't even know if they do on.
I think they did. I got the impression that they would.
You would think that they would, because, it makes no sense to send somebody into a smoke-filled cargo hold without a breathing apparatus, because he's going to last about, 30 seconds?
Yeah, so the point is they could get in there, and then they had to put out the fire.
Dark and smoke-filled.
Yeah, before we could open the doors and vent the plane.
Yeah.
There was another suppression system that I was reading about that uses CO2 to snuff out the fire, and that didn't work out so well either. I can't remember the flight, but they had that. They
were nose down.
The pilot had nose down for obvious reasons. He was taking it closer to the ground.
Wait, back up, Joe, so everybody knows. What Joe's talking about is a flight that catches on fire, and they put out CO2, which it doesn't burn.
It's in the cargo hold only where they put out the CO2.
And so it kills the fire, but then the plane noses down. CO2 is heavier, so it runs downhill with the plane and fills the cockpit with CO2 and kills the flight crew.
Exactly.
And the plane goes down.
It didn't work out. That's another instance where it really would have been a smart idea for them to put on their oxygen masks.
Yeah.
But the problem with CO2 is you don't know it's there. They had no way of knowing that it was going to flow.
Except for that they deploy. I mean, use some common
they knew they were doing it, but they didn't know that it would flow in there.
You're right.
It was supposed to be separated.
I get that, but here's my message to the airlines, if they haven't gotten it already, is whenever a fire breaks out, everybody in the cockpit puts on their masks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Unless it's the oxygen system is on fire, then.
Oh, yeah, in that case,
then that's a bad problem.
Okay.
Last thing that I want to point out in defense of the crew doing what they were supposed to be doing is we talked about that somebody had to go back into that area to fight the fire.
That would be a tough thing to do.
Yeah, well, one of the fire extinguishers was recovered. It was a fire extinguisher from door 2R, which I will be honest, I don't know exactly where that is on the plane. But what is important to note is that it had stuck to it the webbing or netting that was used in the cargo area at the door, which means the stuff was hot and it hit it and stuck to it and, cooled on. So they know that somebody was taking a fire extinguisher into that area to try and combat the fire.
Yeah, and maybe getting overcome with smoke inhalation.
Maybe. I don't know. But that was one of the 11 fire extinguishers total that were on the plane.
But, and for all we know, more of them were being used to fight the fire.
Yeah, because this is the only one they recovered.
Yeah.
So there was a bunch of them that we just don't know where they went.
Yeah, they probably could have recovered a lot more stuff, but that'd be expensive.
It would be very expensive.
Yeah.
And at some point,
all
it's
investigations
just not,
are
worth it anymore.
Yeah, I think once they recovered that piece of the fuselage that had the extensive heat damage, and that's sort of like
sealed the deal.
Kind of sealed the deal. I mean, if they recovered more pieces, they might get more information that would lead them in a different direction.
Maybe. But that's the end of the soapbox that I was standing on in defense of the crew.
I think it's important.
Yeah,
you do see a lot of stuff out there with people saying, "Oh, the crew if they had just done better." But it's just like, God, until you're in that situation, until you really listen to the transcripts, until you take that step back.
Think about the passengers freaking the F out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
I mean, that, to then try to work your way back through the plane, it's actually believed that most of the passengers had gotten out of their seats and had moved to the front of the plane to try and escape the smoke that was coming out from the back wall. So,
I mean,
that would be
not a good
terrifying.
situation.
It's not good. It's not good. And then, on top of that,
that
you
could
don't
be why
know.
he shouted, "Shut